Welcome back to the I Am Passionate podcast. I hope you all are doing well. And we're back. We're here to cover week 4 of the NFL season. And so far, this NFL season has been pretty weird, in my opinion. I was talking about it with my brother earlier today, and he was right that, certain teams have just been playing really, really weird. And it's like, how do you beat this team in this way? Then you go out and you play horrible the next week. I'm sure with that vague description, you all already know who I'm talking about, though, right? But we're going to get things started with my prediction record, kind of just giving a little recap of that. My worst week of predicting games this season so far was week 3, a horrible 6-10. The block kicks ruined so many of my takes, and my takes were bad this week, but hey, I've heard worse. And some of them, like my game picks, they weren't that far off. I would say my worst one was probably going to have been the Falcons, because I picked the Falcons to win last week. But just kind of going over, my records in the first 3 weeks and then overall. In week 1, I was 10-5. Week 2, 13-3. Week 3, I was 6-10. Overall, that's a 29-18 record. I don't know what my overall record would have been, last season when predicting games, because I feel like I wasn't as consistent when it came to tracking that. And I feel like tracking that I should only do from this season onward. But, something that I will keep track of are the predictions that I made last season, because I still have all the notes I have from last season. So now I kind of want to talk about my top 5 games from week 3. Some of these will probably surprise you. And if anything, I think my top 5 have kind of just been what I thought were the 5 best games. Sometimes there's an exact order, sometimes there's not. So it just kind of depends on the week. In this week, I would say it's a mix of both, where the order does not matter as much as the team, the games themselves. But at the same time, some of these games are it's a mix of both. So for my best game of week 3, I'm going to have the Cowboys versus the Bears, because this is the best game I've seen the Bears play in a few years. The offense was just clicking. Caleb Williams arguably played his best game as a pro. He threw for 4 touchdowns. I believe he had about 300 yards. He was very decisive. He looked very confident. And also that touchdown he threw to DJ Moore. At first, I thought that he was going to scramble and run. Because I remember before the play, at first I was because it was 24-14 at that point. And at first I was I would take my field goal, but I was wait a minute. Nah, I'd go for it, because they were at the 5-yard line. And the thing is, if you took your field goal, you still give Dallas some life. But if you go up and get a touchdown, that's a 3-score lead. So that's why. And I thought he was going to take off and run, but he would not. I don't think he would have gotten it, even though yes, he's a very good scrambler. And also he found DJ Moore wide open in the back of the end zone. Great throw, great possession. And so the defense also, they had a huge bounce back game for where they got destroyed by the Lions. And the thing is, I think this game would have been a little bit closer if CeeDee Lamb did not have to leave because of injury. But overall, I think this is a game that the Bears can use as kind of like a building block to, better things to come as the season goes on. It's my second game on the list, which could be seen as the game of the week last week, the Eagles versus the Rams. Man, the Rams just let this one slip through their fingers. They played amazing in the first half last week, and then they just got bullied by the Eagles. Jalen Hurts just decided to prove me wrong. He was able to throw the football consistently, which the thing is, it wasn't exactly me doubting on Jalen Hurts. To be specific, I don't like their offensive play caller. I think, the Eagles were going to miss Kellen Moore, which, the first 3 games and basically, we'll say first 2.5 games, I was proven right, but then, they just kind of turned it on. It's almost like the Eagles don't try, but yet they're able to win, which sounds kind of crazy. The Eagles showed that they can pass the ball, which, again, it surprised me, but at the same time, it didn't. And those blocked field goals quite literally could bite the Rams in the butt if it comes down to if they're very close to getting the 1 seed, because the Eagles now hold that tiebreaker. Moving on to game 3, the Lions versus the Ravens. Both these teams have amazing offenses, and it was a heavyweight fight. Troy Aikman and Joe Buck, described it as that. the Ravens have quite a few problems on defense, which I probably, when I post about me having a podcast episode, I'll probably talk a little bit more about my podcast, specifically the Ravens, on my social media post, because I've noticed, when I post on social media, the few that I have in videos or of me talking like this tend to do better than, just me making a normal post. But anyways, the Ravens, I feel like have more of a consistency problem on defense, and I think they need a star edge rusher. Yes, during the offseason, they added Jair Alexander, who has only really played one game this season, and on paper, they had an amazing secondary. But that secondary can only look good when you have a consistent pass rush. I think they need a star pass rusher. I don't like Van Noy, he's played great as a Raven, but I believe, I don't know how old he is exactly off the top of my head, but I think he is in his 30s. I will Google that real quick. But I think the Ravens need a younger pass rusher to, basically be able to, get to the quarterback. According to Google, Van Noy is 34 years old, which he's not old at all, but for an athlete, I don't know how much longer he'll be in the NFL. Like, he could retire at the end of this season. He could play 2 more years. I've got no idea. But the Ravens need an infusion of younger pass rushers. Madubuike is a great, defender, great run defender, good pass rusher, which the Ravens are missing him. Travis Jones, their nose tackle, great at stopping the run. They were missing him also. The Ravens are beat up on the defensive side of the ball, which was to my brother's point. But even when they aren't beat up, I still think they have that consistency problem. And in the conversation I had with my brother earlier, I think their consistency problem also stems down to their coach, because yes, Derrick Henry had a fumble in each game. And in the game that they lost, those fumbles came at the worst times. But as a defense, I don't think you should be letting up 40 points. I understand that the Ravens defense is not the best unit on their team anymore. But like 2023, even last year, the back half of last year, their defense played amazing. They need to tap back into how that defense was in the back half of last year. But I am more concerned about the defense than I am the offense. Game 4, Chargers versus Broncos. Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert is having a great season, and he led the Chargers on a late touchdown drive to get the win against a good Broncos team. And after the game, Broncos running back J.K. Dobbins stood up for his quarterback Bo Nix, basically saying that he didn't miss any throws. The entire team has to, elevate their game, make a couple more plays where, they missed out on some opportunities. It's not just all on Bo Nix, which I think that was a very good thing to say personally, because a lot of people, specifically young quarterbacks, they'll kind of have to shoulder a lot of the blame when that's not the complete truth. Sometimes, these young quarterbacks, which I understand Justin Herbert is not exactly a young quarterback like Caleb Williams is, for example, or like Bo Nix is, but I think, they get a little too much of the blame when, people look at the box score, but then when you actually look at the game tape, some people, you can't throw a pass anymore perfectly, and yet they'll still drop it. That's just for an example. And then game 5, I'm going to talk about the Jets versus Bucks. It was either between this or the Cardinals versus 49ers, but the reason why I'm going to put the Jets versus Bucks at my number 5 spot is because I thought the game was over, and the Jets came storming back, and they had a chance to win with that blocked field goal, which he jumped clean over, which there were so many blocked field goals this past Sunday. There's so many. But Baker Mayfield is just a dog, and he just led them down to win the game. And I want to talk a little bit about trends I've noticed. And one of those trends is that if you're dating a Hollywood star, you just likely start balling out. Josh Allen, married Haley Steinfeld, who's in the movie Sinners. He got the MVP last year. Justin Herbert dating Madison Beer. He's balling out. The only kind of exception, sort of, is Travis Kelce being engaged to Taylor Swift. But here's the thing. He did get another Super Bowl ring with Taylor Swift in his life. So I think, personally, that counts. And so then also another observation that I have made, I wouldn't more so call it a trend. 2 teams this year have forced 4+ turnovers in the game. The Titans in week 1 against the Broncos and the Steelers in week 3. The Titans lost that game against the Broncos 20-12, while the Steelers won against the Patriots last week 21-14. Their defense forced, I believe, 5 turnovers, and they still only won by 1 score. The fact that both of these games are only decided by basically 1 score is insane. That is just insane to me. And so moving on to the power rankings, which I still need to think of a better way to how to display the power rankings when I don't have a video episode. So let me know down below if you have any ideas on how I can better display it. But which as of right now, my best way of, displaying it would be to break it up. But my top 10 was going over the top 10. I've got the Bills at number one. They're playing offense really, really well right now, and they could lose this spot because their next few games are on the easier side. Number two, the Eagles. Last week, I said I didn't trust their passing game, and they proved me wrong. If they can have a balanced attack, I would not be surprised if they go back to back. Number three, I got the Bucks. I just as simple as Baker Mayfield is a dog. Just point blank simple. Number four, I got the Chargers. The entire Chargers team is playing very, very well, and the offense being the most surprising part. I didn't think their offense would take as much of a leap as it has. I kind of thought they would focus more on running the football, but I would say they've got a fairly balanced attack, and, Najee Harris had a torn his Achilles last week. I hope he is able to come back, better than ever. So Amarian Hampton, their number one draft pick, I believe out of North Carolina, he could be up for a big, big rookie season. Number five, I have the Rams. They were a field goal away from being 3-0. They have an amazing roster, and, I see them improving as the year goes on. I'm not going to penalize teams too much from losing to teams in the top 10 unless it's like you lose 50-0. Number six, I have the Packers. Losing that way to the Browns will knock you out of my top five. The offense just looked terrible, and their defense couldn't really bail them out because, the Packers offense did not really do them any favors. Like, the Packers played pretty much as well as you needed to for basically what? Almost a full 4 quarters, because the Browns kicked a field goal in the fourth quarter. Then, they ended up getting a touchdown because Jordan Love threw the interception. And then they got the blocked field goal with, as time expires, basically. Well, they blocked the field goal and then kicked the game-winning field goal as time expires. Let me get that right. So, I think the Packers, they just had a bad week. But having one bad week will not knock you out of my top 10. I can ensure that. Number 7, I have the Colts. Their offense is playing amazing, and their defense is looking just as good. They are probably the most surprising team of the NFL as of right now. I think they're playing legit. Number 8, I got the Lions. Their team is starting to look like last year's team, and when they their coordinators, I feel like they've gained their confidence, especially the offensive play caller who, that fourth down play call against the Ravens where Jared Goff handed it to Amon-Ra and he pitched it out to Jahmyr Gibbs for a touchdown. Even as a Ravens fan, I was like, yeah, that play call was genius. Because I thought they were going to run. I thought the Lions were going to run up the middle because with David Montgomery because they had success with that all night. And same for that fourth down that pretty much won them the game. But hey, their play caller is great. Number 9, I've got the 49ers. They're undefeated despite not being fully healthy. I'm questioning how much longer they'll be in the top 10 on my list, simply just because Nick Bosa is out for the year with a torn ACL. Number 10, I have Seattle. That defense is balling. Sam Darnold is playing really, really good. Sam Darnold is proving that he is not a one-hit wonder, and I believe he will have a big game tonight. And I'm going to just go over one more team because you all probably noticed. I did not say the Ravens yet. The Ravens, I am going to knock them out of my top 10. They're going to be number 11. I believe that they are still a very talented team, and I just think the defense will be their downfall. But if they kind of go through what they did in the back half of last season, I think they can be a true threat. As of right now, I don't think they're a true threat in the AFC to either the Bills or if KC figures it out. I don't think they're a true threat to either one of those teams. But I'm going to have the rest of my power rankings on the screen right now, and it's going to go a little bit into my game picks, just a little bit, just to give you all a little bit more time to look at them. But moving on to Thursday night, we've got Seattle versus Arizona. This is an important NFC West matchup in a primetime slot because both of these teams have lost to the 49ers, so they have to keep up. Sam Darnold has been looking very good this season, and their defense has been playing amazing. And this team could be dangerous if they make it to the playoffs. They had a strong start last year, then they kind of slowed down a bit. But I think with Sam Darnold, I think they have more potential to kind of, stay afloat and be able to make that playoffs. And then for Arizona, they've been playing surprisingly well. Kyler Murray has been playing pretty well. Marvin Harrison Jr. has been off to a slow start. And, I've seen people on TikTok saying that, like, the Cardinals made the wrong pick. The Cardinals made the wrong pick. I don't think they have. I'm going to take Seattle to win this one 27-14 because last season, Seattle had pretty much Kyler Murray's number, and I can see them, continuing off that prior success. Give me Seattle 27-14. The first London game. I would not be surprised if most of us are pretty much still asleep, or basically one Saturday night, like we're going to bed on Saturday, going into Sunday, we're going to be like, oh crap, there's a London game. Both these teams have been struggling on offense, but at least the Vikings seem to have figured it out a little bit last week by playing Carson Wentz. They played amazing defense. Isaiah Rodgers arguably had the best game a corner's ever had. He had a pick six. He forced, I believe, 2 fumbles, maybe 3, and also he returned one of those fumbles he forced. He punched it out and took it back to the touchdown. So essentially, he scored more points than the entire Bengals team did alone, which I think that is crazy. And so I think the offense as a whole just seemed to play better with Carson Wentz, which begs the question, do you keep Carson Wentz in there? Do you? No idea. And so the Steelers, they haven't really looked as good on the offensive side since their week 1 game against the Jets. And their defense played really, really well last week, showing up when it mattered most, forcing several turnovers on the Patriots, a few inside the red zone, which those turnovers in the red zone, those helped out a lot, because if those did not happen, the Steelers let that game get out of hand. But I don't know, because I think I was reading somewhere that Aaron Rodgers has not exactly played the best in London. Last year on the Jets, he played against the Vikings in London, and he did not look very, very good. So Aaron Rodgers, yes, he's familiar with, the Vikings, but in the same vein, the Vikings are familiar with him. I'm going to take the Vikings to win this game 20-17. I believe, the Vikings will make enough plays to, pretty much secure this win. Moving on to the Commanders versus the Falcons. The Falcons are probably one of the biggest disappointments of the season. You cut your kicker, Younghoe Koo, who had been so reliable for you in the past, and yes, he got out to a slow start this year. You replace him, and when the replacement kicker plays well against the Vikings, and then he starts struggling. I personally think Kirk Cousins, if this continues, he should have a chance to become the Falcons starting quarterback again, because I think their head coach is in a situation where he could very well lose his job. He very well could. Like, being shut out the way they got shut out against the Panthers was just terrible. Being shut out at any time against any team is terrible. But he could very well be coaching for his job at some point this year. And for the Commanders, wide receiver Terry McLaurin is questionable for Sunday due to an injury he had last week. And Jaden Daniels is not 100% guaranteed to play, but things are trending in a positive direction. The Commanders did look good against the Raiders last week, being able to run the ball. I believe they had 200-plus yards as a team. And Marcus Mariota played really, really well. He didn't have to do too much, and he'll need to do that again if the Commanders want to keep pace with the Eagles. Give me the Commanders to win this game. I'm going to say 24-10, which more questions are going to come up about Kirk Cousins. Chargers versus the Giants. The Chargers, I talked about it earlier. They've been looking really, really good to start this season. They played all the teams in their division to start the season and beat them all. The Giants are starting rookie quarterback Jackson Dart, which I do not believe was the best idea. Now, I understand the offense has not looked very good under Russell Wilson. I understand that. But they have a very tough schedule. They've got to play the Chargers. They've got to play the Eagles. I believe they got to play the Broncos. I would not want to throw a rookie quarterback into the fire like that. I really would not. And so, if their schedule, if they would have done this maybe before last week's game, which I get it would have been the Chiefs, but I would have had a little bit more confidence of him going up against the Chiefs than I do this specific week. But I don't know, man. I don't know. This could be a decision that saves Brian Dable's job, or the same reason it could be what gets him fired. Me personally, I would have given Jameis a chance, at least against some of these stronger teams, and then maybe once you're eliminated from the playoffs, if it gets to that case, then I would see what I have with Jackson Dart. Give me the Chargers to win 30-10. Titans versus Texans, the 0-3 Bowl. I think it would be really funny if these teams ended up tying to each other to also stay 0-3. Both of these teams have not looked very good. The Texans have looked horrible on offense because I think their offense is what held them back, because they could be 3-0 if their offense was any better, personally. And the Titans have not really looked all that great overall. They don't really have a great roster, the exception being Cam Ward, who I think he's doing the things you want of a young quarterback. The Texans, I'd say, are a bigger surprise, and also I called the Falcons one of the bigger disappointments, if not the biggest. The Texans are also up there in that conversation. They really, really are, because the Texans do have a decent roster. The Titans could play spoiler for this game, which if they do, it can put the Texans in the further panic mode. I'm going to go with the Titans to get the upset here, 23-17. Why not? Eagles versus Bucks. I believe the Eagles and Bucks could be basically what the Eagles and Rams were last week. Just another game that's basically has the potential to be the game of the week. Both these teams enter after great week 3 performances. The Eagles, basically, they were down at half against the Rams, came back to win, and the Bucks responded after the Jets blocked field goal to kick a game-winning field goal. The Eagles' offense came alive in the second half, leading them to their crazy win. And I believe if their offense gets more consistent, they could potentially go undefeated. They could. They don't have to fully tap into what they had last year, but if they're just at least consistent, if the threat is there, they could be dangerous. And Baker Mayfield and the Bucks, they're all dogs. I saw on the broadcast when they played the Texans that Baker Mayfield has the most touchdown passes in the fourth quarter since he became the Bucks quarterback, which he's got the clutch factor. And he's currently been limited in practice this week, but he is still on schedule to play. As much as I want to pick the Bucks to win this game, because I think this game could go either way, I will pick the Eagles to win 28-24. I think the Eagles are kind of on the, you're praying on my downfall type stuff, so I'm going to pick the Eagles. The Panthers versus the Patriots. The Panthers was a team I was a little higher on. I did not expect them to make the playoffs, but I expected them to play a little bit better. And the Patriots, I was not as high on. The Patriots had a great week 3, even with Bryce Young being a game manager, which is not a problem. And I believe he'll need to be a bit better, because I think the Patriots will come out to play a little bit more desperate, because I don't think they want to fall to a 1-3 team, especially because they're in the division with the Bills. And you're not going to win that division, but you can at least compete for a wild card spot. And I think falling to 1-3 will make things pretty tough. And the Patriots need this game, because the only game that they've looked good in was against Miami, and they still almost lost that game. Give me the Panthers to shock the world, getting the win on the road against the Patriots, 26-14. In regards to the Saints versus Bills, I don't have much to say about this game. I really don't. I think the Bills are going to dominate in this game, and we will see the backups in this game. Give me the Bills to win 38-3. The Browns versus the Lions. The Browns defense is legit. Outside of the Ravens game, they've been in close games against the Bengals and the Packers. And I think they're going to need to get the offense going if they want to win this game, because the Lions, they can put up points quickly. They can. Like, when they played the Ravens this past Monday night, both teams are pretty much going down the field in like 2 minutes flat. So the Browns, they're going to need to be able to run the football, which Quinshon Judkins, the 2 games he's played, he's been playing really well. They're going to have to run the football, stay ahead of the chains, just so that Joe Flacco doesn't have to drop back and throw the ball 50 times. And the Lions, they looked amazing. Their play calling is, kind of getting back to that creative, aspect that it had last season. Both sides of the ball played really well against the Ravens, and they have been lately. And that 4th down play I mentioned earlier with, Goff handing it off to Amon-Ra, and then Amon-Ra pitching it to Gibbs was amazing. I'm going to pick the Lions to win this game, though, kind of easily, 35-17. Now, for the next game, the Jags versus the 49ers. I feel like this can be a trap game for the 49ers, despite the Jags being 2-1, so this might not be a trap game by definition, so to speak. The 49ers are banged up, which is why I believe that this is a trap game, but I still think they are the better team. And most of what I've really seen about the Jaguars is that, people are still talking about, he should lock in on the offensive side of the ball or lock in on the defensive side of the ball. If he wants to get paid more, he would lock in and be more of a wide receiver, but, he wants to play both sides of the ball, and I say, let him keep doing it. He's a rookie, so I was not really expecting him to have like an amazing rookie season on both sides of the ball, but he'll make his impact when he makes it. And when he does, he's going to be a dog for real. But give me the Jags to win this one, 21-20. Colts versus Rams. So before this season started, I would have thought this game would have been kind of boring. I did not think, first off, Daniel Jones would be having the season that he would have. And second, I did not think the Colts would be one of the best stories in the NFL. The Rams are still an amazing team, and they're still a contender for the NFC to, come out and be represented in the Super Bowl. And I believe whoever will win this game, it'll be determined on the run game. Who will take the most pressure off their quarterback? Now, I'm going to take the Rams to win this game, 30-23. The Rams are the best team that the Colts have played so far this season. I think this is the best quarterback that they would have gone up against. And I think that, the Rams, their, kind of experience will kind of, carry them to this win. Moving on to the Bears versus Raiders. My gut is telling me that this will be a pretty decent game. For the Raiders, despite the defense looking bad last week, Geno Smith did have a great game last week. And I'm not too concerned about Ashton Jeanty because the Raiders' run offensive line, like their run blocking has not really been good. He's having to juke people before he even gets the ball, which obviously I don't have any experience as an NFL running back or an NFL athlete in general. But, in my football experience, especially in high school, I've had times where, I'm about to take a handoff and quite literally I'm being tackled before I even get the ball and I got to make somebody miss where I get the ball. Wait, why? But, talking about the Bears, the Bears need to improve on their game last week because they looked amazing. But what they need to take from their win and improved on is consistency. I think on offense, they've got a good offense, but their defense, I think, is what they need to focus on building. I think their offense is missing a few pieces, but nowhere near as much as that defense is. Give me the Bears to win this one, 27-17. Ravens versus Chiefs. I'm going to kind of go against my script here because before making this podcast episode, somebody had made a really, really good point. And that is, this year, the Chiefs might not be able to keep up with the Ravens offense in terms of the Ravens offense can put up points like crazy. The Chiefs have not shown that they can do that. And I think the Ravens need this win a little bit more because I think their Super Bowl window is potentially closing, and that's why I think they need to win it. And it's a crime to say that one of these teams could be 1-3 afterward. It's a crime. And I think the Ravens, I think some of their problems are mostly on the defensive side of the ball. I trust the offense. I trust Derrick Henry despite him having, 3 bad fumbles this season. So I almost was going to have this be the first time where I'd pick the team the Ravens are playing against to beat them. But I do think that Ravens offense, I think Derrick Henry's going to I think he's going to play angry, which I think the entire team needs to, play angry, but at the same time, they need to play their game. I'm going to take the Ravens to beat the Chiefs 27-24, in which the Ravens are also getting some of the pieces they were missing against the Lions back, which will definitely help. Packers versus Cowboys, Sunday Night Football. Micah Parsons might get like 8 sacks in this game out of sheer anger against Jerry Jones. He might. And he still has a suite in Dallas, which it makes sense to me. So, the Packers offense, I think this season, they need to find that consistency because, I don't think, I don't view the Packers specifically, I don't view Jordan Love as a quarterback who's going to beat you all that often. For example, in the past, you would have said, Tom Brady can beat you by himself. Peyton Manning can beat you by himself. Or even referring to younger quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes is going to beat you by himself. Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts. Not Jalen Hurts this year. You can call me a little bit of a hater. I'm ready for the hate in the comments. But I don't think Jordan Love has entered in that realm where it's 2-minute drill, I'm scared. That's what I'm viewing it as, one of those guys where if 2 minutes left, you're down by you need a touchdown. I'm not scared of Jordan Love. He's a great quarterback, but he's not entered that realm of elite just yet to me. And the Cowboys, I think they're going to try to run the ball because I don't think they want Micah Parsons to wreck the game for them. I mean, who does? So if they are able to get a run game going, I think they could, pull off the upset. But I think Micah Parsons is going to be, angry enough. I think this will be a close game, though. Give me the Packers to win 27-20. This is the second battle of the 0-3 Bowl. Both of these teams have been in some close games, but they haven't won a game yet. Both teams need this because both got to keep pace with Buffalo if they want to make the wild card, which I don't think the Dolphins have a shot to make the playoffs at all, even despite being 0-3 and 0-3 teams making the playoffs. I believe the last team to do it was the Texans in 2018. Just quarterback Justin Fields has returned to practice and likely will start if he plays. If he does play, I think he will have a big game. I really think he will. And the Dolphins, they did play their best game last week, but Tua, he's got to look like, I think it was in 2020, whenever the first season that their head coach, Mike McDaniel, was their head coach. Because, I think back to when the Dolphins played the Ravens that season, and Tua just looked incredible, as much as I hate to say it, especially against the Ravens. If he could tap into that form of Tua even just a little bit, they could be scary, but I don't see them doing that anytime soon. Give me the Jets to win their first game of the year, 20-10. Now, the final game of the week, the Bengals versus the Broncos. The Broncos need this. They need it because this is a year where, they could win the division instead of the Chiefs this year. I understand right now it's the Chargers, who are 3-0. But they cannot afford to fall to 1-3. They cannot. They have a very good roster. And also, the two games they lost were against AFC teams. They lost to the Colts. They lost to the Chargers. That could affect them come playoff time if they're in the conversation. They have a very good roster. And to see them like this, I didn't expect this. So losing this game would hurt because that's just another AFC game that, they needed to, keep pace. The Bengals, they looked terrible last week, plain and simple. And they don't really have it any easier considering how good this Broncos team can be. And the thing is, the run game is just brutal and not in a good way. I think if they can keep things to 3rd and short, I think can stay in this game, potentially pull off the upset. But I'm going to take the Broncos to win 21-13, kind of a sloppy Monday Night Football game because this Monday there are 2 Monday Night Football games. But those are my takes for this week. Those are my game picks. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. Thank you so much for listening to the I Am Passionate podcast. I'm your host, Jaren Smith, and I'll see you all later.